the podcast, gang, gang. And for those who don't know, those who are not initiated, those who might not understand, and those who might be in their feelings about gang, gang, it's about camaraderie. It's about we're from New York. It's about we went through similar things. It's about we are native New Yorkers. Hear us roar. You feel me? We are part of the same cohort, the same cohesion, the same comradeship. We are New York City. So gang, gang, New York City gang. You feel me? So much has happened. Yes, I told y'all I was gonna give y'all a twofer. Y'all are getting a twofer. You feel me? Usually this podcast would be for next month, but we are in here right now. I'm delivering what the people need, what the people want, what the people desire. You feel me? So first things first. UFC 253. Oh my gosh. UFC 253. The buildup was there, at least for me, because I follow. The hype was there. Adesanya versus Costa. So much delay to this fight. So much went on with this fight. For those who don't know, Israel Adesanya is the middleweight champion at the UFC. He recently defended his title against Yoel Romero, and it was supposed to be Paulo Costa who was supposed to be his next title defense, but Paulo Costa, during training for their fight, I think it was something with his bicep. He strained it or he tore it. So that fight had to get changed around to Yoel Romero. And that was a fight that Adesanya chose, that he was adamant about, that he wanted to take because all of the naysayers, me included, I'm there's no shame to my game. I like who I like. I prefer who I prefer. And so that all the naysayers could sort of shut up and treat him like a real champion and not like a paper champion. So he wanted to go up against Yoel Romero, who is a beast, a monster, like legit an alien from another planet, a Cuban wrestling, striking alien from another planet, a wrestling gold medalist, silver medalist. I don't remember, but yeah, this was a fight that I feel like anyone worth their weight in salt, who love UFC or commentators, etc., they understood that this was a bad fight for Adesanya, not just because the stylistic difference, the stylistic mismatch, and I'm speaking on Yoel Romero and Israel Adesanya, but also because Yoel Romero is a beast. If Yoel Romero fought Israel the way that he fights others, usually, he just mows them down, walks them down. His quickness, his agility, his explosivity, his strength, his freestyle wrestling ability is on a different level, a whole other level. Now that fight happened. Oh yeah, and also it's worth noting, Dana White and matchmakers did not like that fight. They didn't want to make that fight. It's worth noting. It was not a fight that Dana White, I assume that they understood that it would not be a great show. Because at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. If two fighters in the UFC are mismatched in their styles, but the fight would bring crazy amounts of money and crazy amounts of eyes, they're going to make it. They're going to make the fight. They're not going to hesitate. They're not even going to say that they don't really want the fight. It's a mismatch. They're not going to bring anything negative up about it. They're just going to do it because, it's about the money. It's the bottom line. It's a business. But Dana White was very vocal about this is what Israel wants. I don't think it's a great fight. The matchmakers don't think it's a great fight, etc. So that fight happened, and I was hoping Yoel Romero could finally be middleweight champion, finally, after all this time, and it didn't happen. It went to decision. Israel Adesanya danced around the ring, essentially, stood right in front of Yoel Romero, and didn't do anything. He did some leg kicks, maybe an errant back fist, maybe, but he just kicked Yoel Romero's lead leg. It got beat up a little bit. That's it. That's all that happened. It was so crazy. Israel Adesanya will say that he was not scared of him. I'm fighting on the outside. That's how I work. That's that's a style of fighting. I'm making sure not to get hit. That's how I'm supposed to fight. That's how he sold it. But when you go watch the playback, this dude stood there Yoel Romero knew, he could smell the fear in Adesanya. And it was crazy to the point that first round, Yoel Romero was just standing there in the ring, flat-footed, put his hands down, was like, what are we doing here? What's happening? Are we going to fight or what? Because Adesanya would just keep running away. He would not engage. I was going to say properly, but he would not engage as you would think a champion would engage, as you would think a championship kickboxer many times over, because I'm not knocking Israel Adesanya's skills. He is a fighter. He's been fighting for a long time. He's got a lot of wins under his belt as a kickboxer and made the transition into mixed martial arts. Not saying he's a trash fighter. I'm just saying that Yoel Romero fight, he was trying to prove something, and at the end of the day, he did not prove it. He actually looked worse. And people don't like to talk about it. Like, the UFC doesn't bring it up. It was very much so worse. He, Yoel Romero could stand right in the middle of the ring, have command over the middle of the ring, and he stood there, was like, let's go. What's up? What's happening? It was crazy. Yoel Romero started doing push-ups in the ring. In the octagon. I keep saying ring. In the octagon. Israel didn't do nothing. It was nuts. They went 5 rounds. Decision. Yoel Romero was the most active, I should say. I know Adesanya, what I believe that the mentality was, now I don't know what his training camp was like. I'm not his coach. But it looked like it was, if all else fails, play for points, you know, and that's a strategy. That's a way to go. It doesn't give a great show, but he played for points and he won the decision. It seems just based off points, off whatever amount of strikes that he landed. That was more than Romero. You know, the kicks that were more than Romero, but then Romero scored a takedown, and I thought by the end of that, because it was close to the end of the fight, that should have put Romero over. That should have edged him out over Adesanya, because Adesanya was not damaging Romero like that. And Romero damaged Adesanya. I mean, aside from his leg being busted, it wasn't that crazy. Like, he wasn't really hurting him. Romero looked to be in peak physical condition, to the point that the in-octagon interview, you know, his leg looked a certain way, but he started jumping up and down. He started salsaing and everything. Like, I feel like that fight should have went to Romero, but it didn't. Now, Costa, he beat Romero, which I thought that was an upset too. He beat Romero in order to fight Adesanya. Of course, couldn't fight because of his injury. And here we go. The fight has rolled back around on Fight Island during COVID-19, UFC 253. The lead up was not that, you know, you're dealing with two individuals who, or I should say, you're dealing with a language barrier. Costa doesn't speak great English, so he can't give the jawing and the trash talk the way that Israel can. And then I feel like Israel Adesanya is not really great at trash talking, to me, personally. He's not a Conor McGregor. You know, he's not I don't understand what it is. Maybe it's his culture. You know, it just doesn't feel, it's not just that it doesn't feel, well, no. It feels genuine. It just feels corny. I don't know if he's scripting. I don't know if it's super duper just an act, and this isn't really him, and he's just being that just to be the guy, the style bender, you know, and he feels like he's got to be that way. But coming into this Costa fight, the animosity really didn't make a lot of sense. It was the animosity that he was putting forward was not. It wasn't supported by animosity leading up to it. So, like, yeah, they had their exchanges. Yeah, Costa said a few things about Adesanya being skinny and weak and not that strong, which is kind of true. He's not known for his power and his knockout power in terms of just straight manhandling somebody. That's not his style. He's the style bender. He's more about precision, quickness, octagon IQ, fighting IQ, you know? He doesn't really go to the ground. That's not his skill set. He is a striker. So there were things like that, but when I saw the presser leading up, the pre-fight, I was like, whoa, he's going off a little bit too much. Like, it felt like it wasn't fair. It felt like, why are you going off on this guy that can't even really speak English like that? And I understand, you know, I know Conor did that a few times too. But Conor said slick stuff. He was saying some wild, slick stuff that was hard to make comebacks to as well. So it wasn't like he was just saying the baser things. And Adesanya seems to just not be that slick. He just says the basic corny lines. That I don't like. I feel like there's a right way to be a heel and there's a wrong way to be a heel. And Adesanya right now feels like the kind of heel that's like, it hurts my heart. Because you win so much. See, so the difference. Conor McGregor, he won so much and was the champion and beat legends. Like dudes that were prime fighting. Conor wasn't even the favorite. And he beat them like nothing. Like knocked them out. You know, he had the talk and he had the walk. But also with that talk and with that walk, it seemed to be very calculated. It seemed like the respect was there, and only when the respect was gone did Conor McGregor's reputation go down the drain. And that respect element that he lost with his persona happens with Khabib Nurmagomedov. He flew off the handle, and it just started becoming disrespectful just for disrespect's sake. You know, not necessarily to sell tickets, not to be entertaining, you know, not to be the biggest, baddest, I'm the guy. It was like, you're attacking his wife now verbally, you're attacking his culture now. Like, how low are you going to go? So it's starting to feel like that with Adesanya. It felt like, okay, too much, man. Like, dial it back a little bit. Yeah, you won. Yeah, you have a 9-win streak. Yeah, this is what, your second, maybe third title defense. You know, you're good. Don't get me wrong. But you can't be like being loud like that when you just fought a fight like you did against Costa and like you did against Romero. Romero, you were scared out of your boots. Everybody knew it. You did not want to get knocked out because Romero could have mauled you. And you just stayed closed up and danced around. Costa, you tried to do some things, but you were attacking Costa the same way. If you see the fight, for the spoilers, believe the fight ends round 2, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm remembering correctly. And he just, round 2. He essentially attacked the problem of Costa with the same mentality as Yoel Romero, which made some sense because Romero's striking is not as high level as Adesanya's. Costa's striking his level is even lower than Romero's. So his camp must have known that he's going up against a mismatched striker in Costa, you know? But that Costa still has strength and Costa can take a hit. Costa was beaten bloody by Romero and was walking down Romero. He could take the hit and keep going, even with his poor form, even with his sort of poor techniques at times, poor choices of techniques at times. He comes forward and has power, strength that he has stopping power. He can end fights. He could finish Adesanya. So I understood the camp probably trained Adesanya to attack this like Romero, give respect to the power, and clip him from the outside. Win this by points, and if you can finish him because he is a lower level fighter in skill than Romero, less explosivity, less power, less of a freestyle wrestling background that could take Adesanya off of his feet at will. When you see the opening, take the opening and hit him hard. So that was the difference. Fight from the outside. When you see the opening, take it and hit him hard because you might be able to finish him. Might. And that's an okay tactic. I just felt my gripe really with the fight really is with Costa. With the fight itself, Costa did not do enough. Maybe it was the weight cut because he came in at the weigh-ins 30 pounds overweight. So he had to weight cut super fast, and that takes a toll on you and on your power and on your mentals. Or he just I don't get it. I don't want to say it's fixed. I don't want to say it's a fixed fight. I don't want to go there. But that was so weird. The Costa that we got, the warrior that we got fighting against Romero is not the warrior that we had fighting against Adesanya. and I don't like that. I was tight. I was expecting Costa to pummel Adesanya. Maybe Adesanya gets a good spinning elbow. Maybe he gets a good spinning back fist. Maybe he hits Costa, knocks him out with a or finishes him with a heel kick, spinning heel kick. Maybe, but after Costa lays into him, that's what I was expecting. That's what I wanted to happen. I wanted to see a real fight. I wanted to see Adesanya actually be challenged, because he fought Whitaker coming back to unify the belt. Whitaker's much smaller than him. He had a height and reach advantage. He fought Gastelum, once again, height and reach advantage. He fought Romero, height and reach advantage. He's fighting Costa, height and reach advantage. Then you have Whitaker, who is the kind of fighter that Whitaker is. Gastelum, who's really a wrestler and not that kind of warrior in terms of beating, bloody, knocking out, finishing kind of a fighter. And then Romero's really the only warrior that he has come up against in his title defenses. I feel like in general, a real warrior fighter that will just take the hits and fight you and maul you. And he ran from him. And Costa, he kept his distance. Of course, Costa being the low-level striker did not... I agree with Chael Sonnen that in his commentary and his position that it seemed like Paulo Costa and his team did not have a plan B. They had a plan A on what to do, and when Adesanya wasn't moving in that way, he didn't have anything to do. That's how it looked. And so then going back to Adesanya and his showboating, it's cool to be the dude, it's cool to back it up, but when you have a fight where you're fighting against Acosta and it's not a spectacular win, he hit him with a grazing, back fist or something, grazed his temple. Acosta fell down, got knocked down, and then he just ended Acosta as fast as he could. Real quick. Okay, be done. Now Acosta, he was done. He gave him his back. I don't know what happened with Costa. He took much harder, stronger, direct hits to his temples, all about his head, from Romero, and didn't even bat an eye. I mean, his legs were gone sometimes, but kept going. So this is strange that he gets grazed, goes down, but doesn't keep fighting. Doesn't just keep punching, keep going. So it's just strange. So having a win like that, where it's like you didn't necessarily dominate your opponent, you just kind of hit him a few times. You got into a little bit of scuffle, but stayed on the outside as much as you could. Kicked him with leg kicks and stayed outside, and then happened to graze him in an exchange and knock him down. After the fight, Israel Adesanya was on some OD showboating with all his dancing and all of his thing and all of his, this is me, I've got my dick wrapped around my waist. I'm like, bro, chill out. Chill out, fam. It's one thing to be the showboater and to be the trash talker, but you still want people to root for you. You still want people to want you to win and be the badass. It's not badass to act like that. It takes something away from you. It makes people want to see you fail, because it makes people feel like you don't deserve that title, like you're not a proper champion. Because you don't act like a proper champion, even being a heel. Because Conor McGregor, still even being a badass with his mouth and in the octagon, I could respect him as a champion. I feel like I can't respect Adesanya as a champion now, and I don't like that. Earlier I could. I don't like that, and it was wild because when the fight finished and they raised they raised the hands, and still Costa stayed there. It seemed like Costa, when they were announcing that Adesanya won, it seemed like Costa wanted to give him the respect. After the fight, they usually shake hands or, they hug or whatever when they want to show the respect after the fight. Even after all of the trash talk, Costa looked like he was there to do that, and Adesanya wasn't with it. I'm like, whoa, that's on a different level. To me, that's on a different level. But yeah, so that happened. Adesanya is still champion. Dana White is now warning, putting everybody on notice that John Jones has not officially moved to the heavyweight division. So ostensibly, I assume if John Jones wanted to fight Adesanya, Dana White would make that happen. Like I said earlier, because money, it's a business. That would sell a whole lot of tickets. Adesanya is undefeated. He's at 9-9. He's tied with Weidman for the most wins, consecutive wins, or I should say the win streak. I feel like he's not going to make it to Anderson Silva's number of 13, but who knows? Costa was undefeated too. He came into this fight undefeated and he lost. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see who Adesanya fights next. I'm hoping that it's John Jones. I think that would be a really cool fight because John Jones is slippery like Adesanya. But we'll see. That fight happened, and I was very much so disappointed. Very disappointed in the outcome and very disappointed in both fighters and their antics, how they acted in the octagon, and Adesanya, how he acted out of the octagon. Not cool. It's hard for me to respect you. I could respect Conor, even with all his craziness. It's hard for me to respect Adesanya. But yeah, so that's that. 100% that is, and that happened for those who are UFC fans. We've got some news. I don't know. I want to talk about news and politics on this podcast, but so much is going on that's just wild. So much. And I feel like we get inundated with politics everywhere. You know? Everywhere. All the companies are trying to be as woke as they could possibly be in order to keep business or in order to be in style, be in trend. And it's just everywhere and from everyone. And I'm not necessarily saying it's the most horrible thing for people to be vocal about issues, social issues. I think that's good and should be encouraged. But when everything becomes about the election and Biden and Trump and Harris, like I don't necessarily want my podcast to be another place where I've got to inundate everybody with that again. Like, y'all get it. Y'all know what's going on. You feel me? My recommendation for today is going to be something along the lines of politics, but more on the information tip. We'll get there. And then news-wise, right now, there's so much going on, or I should say not right now. Generally, there's so much bad news. So much bad news. There's some good news and so much bad news. And that's why I didn't make an only news podcast. You know? Because when you got an Atlanta activist, you know, with the Black Lives Matter chapter or whatever in Atlanta, talking about Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta, he founded the Black Lives Matter chapter in Greater Atlanta in 2016, that this dude is now being investigated for money laundering. Like, are you kidding me? Allegedly spent $200,000 in Black Lives Matter donations on his house and personal expenses. And this is according to the FBI. When you got stuff like that happening, it's like, if we just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, and this is the horrible things, and these are the trash people, and these are the this and these are the that, it can just inch us closer, or it can make it that much easier to lose faith in humanity and to lose faith in our systems, and to lose faith in, for some of us at the most extreme point, to lose faith in existence. I don't necessarily want to contribute to that. Now we're going to talk news at some point. We're going to talk politics at some point. Like, that's a news story. That's a breaking news story. That was yesterday. That just got aired out. The FBI is investigating the Black Lives Matter thing, this dude spending XYZ. And then everything coming out with the Breonna Taylor case and what the indictments are and what they're not, who's getting charged and who's not getting charged and for what, etc. It's crazy because somebody's lying. Someone's lying. Someone's story is not accurate. There's so many weird, inaccurate, so many weird, like non-common sense things that the official story is that just got aired out from the police's standpoint, and a few kind of weird things, peculiar things on the other end. It's just murky situations, like Mr. Floyd's passing, murky situation. So yeah, it's just so much tension being held. And maybe for this week, let's try to release that tension. Let's try to breathe. Maybe turn off the news for a second. Maybe turn off NPR for a second. Maybe turn off CNN for a second. Maybe turn off Fox News for a second. You know? And sit and live life. You know, experience and appreciate the moments that we have, because we can't get them back. We can't get the time back. Definitely go back to it. I'm not saying, forget all this crazy. No. We live in a world where things happen. We live in a world where things go on, and we should be a part of our world. I'm just saying, take some time. It's important for you mentally and emotionally to take some time away from those things. So maybe you don't get as wound up as you might have gotten with someone who thinks something different than you, when they're sitting next to you or when they're talking to you, when they're in conversation with you. You'll be able to deal a little better because you had that time to just bring the gears to neutral and not necessarily be in sixth gear, day in and day out, because of how much we're inundated with politics and news and so on. Yeah. That's I don't know. That's my advice. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm still in it. I've still got the opinions. So when we start getting into it, and we're gonna get into it, there's gonna be some hot takes. There's gonna be some interesting interpretations. But when we get there, when we get there. What else? Interesting. Oh yeah, interestingly enough. I might do a little tidbit right here, Might do a little tidbit right here. So Pelosi's talking about Biden not debating Trump. Trump not debating Biden. I believe that the headline, according to the Washington Examiner, is Biden agrees Pelosi has a point on call to not debate Trump, but swipes. He's not that smart. Quote. Okay. I'm going to give a little bit of, maybe it's a hot take. Maybe it's not a hot take. We'll get into how I feel in its most distilled form at a different point in time regarding this whole election cycle. But there needs to be debates, man. We're going through all that we're going through in COVID-19. We're going through digital rallies, etc. Trump is going the traditional way, and Biden is doing live streams and so on. And Biden I know it's not easy. It cannot be easy running for president of the United States. It cannot be easy being a politician and being in the public eye for so long. But dag, man, this dude gets on live stream meetings as part of his campaign and talking to unions and talking to people and women and founders of foundations, and they ask questions and he's reading off teleprompters. Like, you can tell the questions are prepared. Like, during the Q&A sections, you can only ask questions that are the list of prepared questions, because they've got teleprompters ready for him to answer those questions so that he doesn't go off the cuff. And that's scary to me. I don't know about y'all. That is scary. Now, yeah, I know that we have a president right now that will go off the cuff and will say some wild stuff. There's definitely a spectrum. There's definitely two sides to the coin. There's a positive and a negative to everything. But it's scary to me that Biden is not going, like, when it's time to answer real policy questions, that he can't just talk about it without gaffing. So his campaign manager, et cetera, his, campaign team has to have prepared answers for him so that they make sure that he gets it right and doesn't misrepresent, That's scary to me for a president of the United States in terms of mental state and relating to China and relating to Russia and other nations that don't speak English. It's weird. Like, it's unsettling. Like, you can't just talk person to person about what you know. And then the times that we see that he does, more often than not, it's on some gaffe stuff. Like, he's saying things that don't really make a whole lot of sense, or that when you go back and look at it and put it under a little bit of scrutiny, it's like, that's not really true. Or why did you say that in such a disrespectful way? Or like this is a person that wants to vote for you at your campaign, who is a Democrat, who wants to vote Democrat, and you're disrespecting this person. Like, why would you be doing that? It's a lot of strange things that are unsettling to me. And so this thing, I bring that up to say, this idea where Biden will not debate Trump is not a new thing. A lot of people were calling this. A lot of pundits, etc. A lot of people knew, I don't know if Biden is going to be able to hold his own against Trump in the debate. Not speaking to Biden's intelligence, but speaking to what looks like or what appears to be, because I don't really know. I don't really know him or his life or his diagnoses or whatever, or what have you. I don't know his medical record. It appears to be that his mental faculties are starting to betray him. So I don't find this surprising that he goes, yeah, I agree. I'm not going to debate Trump. Now, that also doesn't mean that Trump's mental faculties are all 100% there. That's not what I'm saying. Not at all. But in a debate, I can definitely see Trump speaking a little bit more coherently than Biden. Maybe not saying a whole lot, not saying a whole lot of intellectual things coming out of Trump. Usually he doesn't. I mean, part of his appeal, was that he is not a politician, that he's anti-establishment, right, etc., quote unquote. So he won't necessarily be saying anything too groundbreaking. However, if Biden is stammering and can't deliver a complete and coherent thought that makes sense, where we gotta sort of sift through all of his, but then you can't, and then sort of interrupting himself and starting over again. We gotta sift through that to divine a meaning out of what he's trying to say. That's not a good look. And I know his campaign knows it. I know Biden knows it. I know they won't admit it. Of course, they will not admit it, because they won't. Biden's campaign manager has been on and been asked on TV, on the news, and been asked that question directly, and blatantly 100% dodges the question, about Biden's mental thing. And now he has to read off a teleprompter to deliver a coherent response regarding his policies. They just dodge it. They don't even, nope, they act like the person didn't even ask that question, and they try to make it about Trump or about something else, which is also disingenuous. Like, I really don't like that. What are we, 5-year-olds? You can't address it head on. You have to sidestep it. You have to act like it doesn't exist. Like, we all see it, man. You're not pulling the wool over our eyes. Yeah, so it's, I'm gonna start going into a rant in like 2 seconds about this whole thing. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna stop myself. So yeah, this whole thing, Pelosi, Biden's, I don't believe, in my heart of hearts, I do not believe that a debate between Trump and Biden is going to happen. I believe that Biden will be made a fool of. if he debates Trump. Not because Trump is going to say intellectual things, but because Trump will clap back in the way that Trump claps back, and Biden is not going to really have a whole lot to say outside of teleprompter or outside of earpiece. And it's going to sound like it's earpiece, and it's going to look like it's teleprompter. It's not going to be a personable, off the cuff kind of thing, kind of debate, you know, where you had the open sort of town hall style debates. And I remember Trump and Hillary walking around and addressing people specifically with their questions. It's not going to be that. If it does happen, and I don't think it's going to happen at all. And I feel sorry for Biden. I don't necessarily want him to be made a fool of. I personally don't feel like Biden should have ran for president. But there are other motives and probably other things going on behind the scenes that I don't know about as to why he would run for president, considering what seemed to be his deteriorating mental faculties. That Trump is not that smart, I don't know. I have no idea. He might not be. You know, there are plenty of things that people are good at that when you take them out of the thing that they're good at and you put them to something different, they're not going to be good at it. You know, so they're going to look not smart. They're going to look not intelligent. I can't really say whether Trump is smart or not. Maybe unwise, maybe not forthcoming with information, maybe a little old, you know, getting a little up in years, and some certain things are slipping. Yes. But I don't know. You got to be the president. You have to have some kind of mental faculty, some kind, to deal with the amount of things that you've got to deal with and the burden that you've got to deal with being president of the United States. Biden knows it. He was the vice president. So it's just very interesting. Because I know that if they do debate, it's definitely not going to be an intellectual debate. And that's going to be on both sides. Biden is not going to go intellectual. He didn't go intellectual during the Democratic debates. He got owned most of the time. And he got owned the hardest by his running mate, his VP. She came for him. She came for his address. So yeah. But that'll be another podcast where I go into like what the heck podcast, right? But yeah, that was just an interesting headline. Interesting thought. I don't think there's going to be a debate. What do y'all think? For those of you on YouTube and listening to this on platforms where you can comment, what do y'all think? Comment on it. Let me know. I want to hear your opinions about it. I want to hear the reasonings about it. This is very much so an open space, an open forum. I throw this question off to you, in the words of Philip DeFranco. You know? But yeah, so we've reached the end of our time together for this episode. Recommendations, if you're on YouTube at all, even if you're not on YouTube, go check out YouTube. Type in Viva Frei, Vivafrei. Really cool YouTuber, really cool YouTube channel. It's a litigator, a lawyer out of Canada, who he'll say a lawyer turned YouTuber, and he does these cool things called vlogs, VLAWG, and he sort of talks about and breaks down court cases, the prominent cases that are going on right now. So like it's cool. His channel's cool because he's breaking down and talking about things that you're not going to see, or that information that you're not going to get in the media. So when you hear the headlines and you get all the distilled information, you're not always going to read down the article and see the good stuff, see the meat of what's going on, which I think journalism right now is capitalizing on people's shrinking attention spans and putting the real information at the bottom of the articles, and putting sort of like the trash, conjecture, op-ed, you know, weird, convoluted information to try to make you feel something that is not their responsibility to try to make you feel in the beginning of the article, because your attention span is so little. Or at least they believe that. You can get that kind of news, those kinds of specifics from Viva Frei. Really cool. Canada litigator who comments on American law and legal system. He makes things interesting. He does it out of his car. He's pretty cool. His videos are pretty funny. So if you want to really understand what's going on with the Flynn case, like legally, what's actually happening, what's actually being said, and not necessarily have to hear it through through the filter of mainstream media, whether it's conservative media or liberal or whatever it is, and you want to just see the brass tacks of the information in a really cool way, check him out. He covers Flynn. He's covering Floyd. He's covering Breonna Taylor and what's going on with that litigation and how interesting that is. And things, there are oftentimes there are things in the legal documents, things that are actually happening in reality in court, and things that are getting argued and so on, that the media does not report on. 100%. And so you'll believe that things are a certain way or are going a certain way or certain things happening based off of what Fox News says or based off of what CNN is saying, what their headlines are saying, and so on. But then when you go watch Viva Fry and he's telling you this is the actual order to show cause, this is what the litigation was, this is what the judge was, this is the paperwork and the receipts, pretty cool. It's not formatted like a gossip YouTube channel. That's not what it is. So don't think, it's like Impressive or what's the other one? Unwind with Tasha K. Shout out. Great channels. This is not formatted like that. This is a lawyer being cool, slick, funny, doing an entertaining video, talking about what's actually happening with these very monumental and culturally defining cases. Cases that are also molding the American judicial system. So check that out. He also does a really cool live stream with Robert Barnes, I believe, who's a lawyer who's practicing out of New York, if I'm not mistaken. Really cool dude. It's a really cool meeting of the legal minds where Robert Barnes gives deeper insight into different subjects that they talk about during the live stream. Because, Viva Fry is from Canada, so he's not the most well-versed in American law. So he's got Barnes on, a seasoned veteran, and Barnes is able to expound even further on certain things, give histories of certain laws and what's actually going on and what the judge could do and maybe what the defense attorneys could do and so on, what the prosecution should do and so on and so forth. Really, really cool. And then what they do with the live stream was usually like an hour and a half, 2 hour live stream. They'll chop it up. So the live stream happens, I think, once a week or twice a week, and then he'll chop up all of the little subjects where, Robert Barnes talks about the Breonna Taylor case and what's happening with that and what should be happening and what's not happening and so on and so forth. Really, really cool. Really, really interesting. It is definitely not boring. I know people here like, oh, lawyers and things. What a snooze fest, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't want it, It's entertaining. You guys will like it. You guys will love it. It doesn't matter what political affiliation that you're part of. It's just the word of the law and seeing how that gets applied in different circumstances, So that's my recommendation. Viva Fry's YouTube channel. Please enjoy it. You can go learn a lot of stuff about what's been happening and what's happened in the past too with other cases and so on. It's just wild for those people who want to know what's actually going on. It's a really cool supplement to have. You've got your media outlets and your media sources and where you get your news from. And then you also have this other sort of pocket thing that's giving you a sort of boots on the ground in the courtroom look at what's happening and what's going on. I think it's pretty great. I think it's awesome. But yeah, that's our time together, y'all. We'll definitely expect another podcast this week, Thursday, Friday, something like that. I think I'm going to start adjusting what days I'm dropping the podcast. I might just drop them whenever I feel like dropping them every week. We might get 2 a week. We might get 3 a week. But definitely for this week, you're getting 2. So because we're going into October. So first podcast episode of October is going to happen this week. All right. So make sure to stay locked in. Make sure to stay tuned in. Make sure to share the Social Millennial Podcast. We're on IG and Facebook at Social Millennial Pod. Y'all know what to do. We are on YouTube, the Social Millennial Podcast. Y'all know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, share. You feel me? I want to hear from y'all. Comment on Instagram. Comment on Facebook. We are on Twitter, though we're not quite as active, but we're on there. We're there, and we are ramping up. I'm telling you, a lot of big things are coming. We're building up the studio. We're gonna have guests. As soon as this COVID thing is starting to really die down, I got a bunch of guests that are chomping at the bit to get on the podcast. We've got a lot of big things coming. we've got merch coming. That was my poor excuse for a drum roll. But we've got merch coming for the Social Millennial Podcast. So if you want to rep NYC as a social millennial, y'all know where to keep it locked and where to look out for that. I'm going to be letting y'all know where that's going to drop, when that's going to drop, etc. We're working on the website. It's going to be fire. Just keep it locked. Keep on listening. Keep on sharing. We're on Spotify, Radio Public, radio.com. We're on Google. We're on Apple Podcasts. Like, check it out, y'all. Check it out. All right. So this is our time. Most certainly. This is our time. It's been a blessed time. It's been a wonderful time. Everyone under the sound of my voice, I've had a great time with y'all, and we'll continue to have a great time with y'all up to episode 1000 and beyond. So much more news is coming. So much is going to be fire. It's going to be lit. We're building up the studio so that we can deliver a video component to the podcast. So that's going to be pretty cool. And I'll see y'all. All right. Keep it locked here. You know where it's at. Social Millennial Podcast. New York. Gang, gang. Keep your masks on where it's appropriate. Social distance where it's appropriate. And let's get this bag. All right. Peace.
Walking through my city, so many people passing me by, but nobody seems to know why. Street lights saying stop and go, cars zipping past me to and fro. Does anybody know now? Oh, how time is slipping. 'Cause under the surface of the push and shove is New York City. The hustle and bustle of this town I love, that's New York City. Could there be a future here? Oh, so many people giving their sweat and tears. Does someone know the way? I'm sick of taking it day by day. Oh, 'cause under the surface of the push and shove is New York City. The hustle and bustle of this town I love. Under the Broadway lights, performers working day and night, filming for the TV screen, the movie house and in between. Heights are heights and zoo to zoo, magic that you always knew. Stadium sounds, the love abounds in the patter of little feet. Looking out for our fellow man, lending a helping hand, that's New York City. Coming together and taking a stand, that's New York City. 'Cause under the surface of the push and shove is New York City. Looking out for our fellow man, lending a helping hand, that's New York City. Coming together and taking a stand, it's New York City. The hustle and bustle of this town I love is New York City. That's New York City. That's New York City. That's New York City.